Hill walkers setting off for the Highlands are faced with all manner of problems. In fact, there's so many problems, it's a wonder they bother getting out of their bed in the morning. I mean, for example, the mist could come down and they could get lost. And you can't always depend on the compass, because there are some parts of Scotland where magnetism in the rocks upsets the compass, like for example in the Black Cullinan Sky. Or they could stumble and fall off a scary crag, or even be blown off a crag in a strong wind.
Well, we're hanging on in there, it's okay, we're hanging on in there.
But there's one problem that surpasses all the rest, and that is trying to pronounce and make sense of the Gaelic hill names seen in Ordnance Survey maps. Now, it's bad enough for the lowland Scots. I mean, they can at least pronounce their CHs and say loch. But pity the poor English hill walker coming up north, having escaped that hell that is the crowded Lake District. You know what I mean, crowded coaches and people shuffling about in laybys. How do they cope with these names? Well, the plain fact is they don't. Now, just let me show you what I mean. How would you pronounce this name? Sgurrs and Glens? Oh, no. I have it in good authority that it should be pronounced Sgurrs and Glens, the peak of the black chest or coffin. Or how about this one? Is that Mullach Froche Quire? No, that's Mullach Fruach Chara. But the problem isn't really that difficult. I mean, if you just put your mind to it and do a wee bit of study of the Gaelic language, then a whole new world opens up for the hill walker. You see, the native Gaelic-speaking population centuries ago named every conceivable landscape feature. They gave individual names to each feature. They didn't only name the mountains and the glens and the rivers. They also gave a name to things like corries, ridges, crags, waterfalls, and even featureless slopes leading down to some lochside or river. And if you have a knowledge of the Gaelic language, even a fairly superficial knowledge, then it gives you an insight into the Highland environment, both past and present, because the names commemorate things such as people, events, vegetation as it used to be as well as it is today, wild animals, birds, some of these animals now extinct, domestic animals, even colour of hills, shapes of hills, and also terrain characteristics. Now, in order to tackle this problem, I propose, in my wisdom, to set out for the Scottish Highlands, and the location I've chosen is the grim little hamlet that is Arachar, located at the head of Loch Long. And from that location we're going to climb a mountain called Ben Narnain. The trees seen here are mainly Sitka spruce, a species which is not native to Scotland. Trees which are native to Scotland feature widely in hill names. For example, Sgurr and Ewer in the Mamors means peak of the yew tree. Strawn and Guash in the Black Mount area means nose, or in hill terms, spur of the pines. In many cases the tree species are now absent, so that a knowledge of Gaelic gives an insight into the past environment as well as the present.
Oh, I'm ski. I'm tired already. Anyway, this is a good point to stop and take a look at some of the hills that tower over Arachar. They're not particularly high, but they're nonetheless quite attractive. The one over here, that's Cruach Tarabert. And Cruach is a word that crops up in Gaelic hills quite regularly, and it has the romantic meaning of pile, stack or heap. And Tarabert really means an isthmus, not all that easy to say, isthmus. So there you are, it's Cruach Tarabert, which just simply means the pile or the heap associated with the isthmus. I think it sounds much better in Gaelic. But there's another hill further over, right round there, and that in fact is Ben Riach. Now, Ben is the Scots word for a mountain, but the Gaelic is Bain, and the Riach is another very common word in hill names. It actually means brindled. Well, what the heck does brindled mean? Well, in fact, I think that means a mixture of reds and browns, and it's often used in connection with cattle, the colour of different kinds of cattle, or the colour of the vegetation on the hill. But there is another way of pronouncing the word Riach. It's more commonly called in Gaelic Riavach. So we have over there Ben Riavach. Now Riach or Riavach, there's perhaps a much more famous Riavach in the Cairngorms, namely Bray Riach or Bray Riavach. And I said that Riach or Riavach means brindled, but it's also an adjective for the divil, and it can mean grizzled. So a common name for the divil in Gaelic is Riavach Mór, the large grizzled one. Very interesting, eh? No? One other hill in this area, just moving round to the right, is Tullach Hill, which sounds a bit sort of anglified, but the Gaelic would be Tulach, and Tulach just means a green grassy knoll. Now, the unrelenting slog continues up what I said earlier to be this so-called motorway in the sky, so the sooner we get it over with, the better. Getting a bit warm now, take the fleecy top off. Now this is actually quite an important junction here, because the path heading off in this direction is the generally accepted route towards the Cobbler, another favourite hill in this area. But what we have to do now in fact is to leave this rather busier track and head straight on up, following a much less defined route heading towards our chosen mountain, Ben Narnain. Cumorsht, keep going.
Possibly the most common mountain name in Scotland is Ben or Bain. For example, Scotland's highest mountain is Ben Nevis or Ben Nevis, which means the venomous mountain. The further northwest you go, the word Ben is often replaced by Sgurr, especially if the mountain is pointed, as with Sgurrs and Glens on Skye, the peak of the young men. Where the mountain has a pointed summit on a large rounded mass, then Stob is quite often used. For example, Stob Gower or Stop Goer in the Blackmount area. Mountains with a rounded summit have the name Miall, as in Miall Tarsoin, seen here in Glen Kinglas. The list of names describing mountains in Scotland according to shape and character, seems to be endless and includes names like Einach, Dreim, Croch, Tor, Carn, and many more.